Hello, Mohamed. How are
Hi,
you? It's
Mayu.
so
How
nice
are
to see
you?
you.
¿Qué tal?
It, muy bien, muy
Muy bien.
bien. And I am so
So,
pleased that we will be speaking together about cultural diplomacy because with your hello y hola y cómo está, it's all about bridging cultures and reaching out. And
that's
that's what you have always made me feel.
well, Mayu. First of all, it's a pleasure to have you for a chat on a subject which I know is very dear to us because we have been doing both. We have been doing diplomacy and we have been indulging in many cultural events. It would be interesting to, if you can, give a little definition to culture and diplomacy or cultural diplomacy or diplomatic culture. How do you see it?
Oh, definitely. It is so important. Many times people think that these are new concepts, but really, cultural diplomacy has existed for centuries. We can see it from the informal ambassadors, the traders, the caravans. They were cultural diplomats, who interacted with the different cultures. Let's go back to Marco Polo and when he visited the Chinese, emperor. So it is important that we understand what we're really talking about. So with this historic framework, how do you arrive at a definition of cultural diplomacy? So definitely it is, it's this set of activities which are you undertake by the government or many times also by the private sector or by NGOs to then promote, foreign policy interests also. And it is a way of bridging and bringing more mutual understanding amongst the states and the different cultures. And to you, Mohammed, how do you
Well,
define it?
but I believe culture in all parts of diplomatic career is the software weapon with which you can meet the challenges. And I say weapon not to fight with, but to help you overcome the short distances that you face, especially when you are appointed to another country, in terms of language, of the values, of the history, of the establishment, etc. And also, it creates something very important in diplomacy, which is trust. Trust, in other words, if you are talking to your vis-a-vis, if you have an understanding of his or her culture, if he feels or she feels that you can be, that they're close to, that creates big trust and facilitates the dialogue.
You are so right. And it is so important to make that difference between what a hard power approach can be and what a soft power approach can be. Definitely, hard power approach historically has been favored as policy by the government. So for conducting the international and regional relationships, it's very obvious, imposing your own criteria. But now, as you say, it's completely changed through the use of internet, through the way that we can connect. It's necessary that we find the role for soft power because it is a form of cultural diplomacy that is becoming even more significant. And it is thus important, as you say, for the diplomatic academies that we teach our future professionals also to be able to balance this out. I recall, and I was on an international mission with the rest of the Central American ministers, and it was the very first time that I was heading, my own delegation, and we were off to Asia. And they love karaoke over there. They love music and they use it quite well to break many times as you arrive into a culture and it's so, you are tense and there are cultural differences. But that karaoke night, simply each one of us began to sing. And we were kind of forced at the beginning, but then it just flew. And so when you break the ice, and then in another situation, it was where all of the very formal career ambassadors, but suddenly one of the attendees There was a piano, sat down at the piano, started playing, and then another one started kind of beating drums. And it is thus when your spirit can then, simply start to build a new highway through which you can communicate. And as you said before, it's to build trust. It is to build the confidence that you need to then have a framework of, a personal relationship to build on as you enter and go into the conversations regarding, your formal business that you have to do.
When I was ambassador in Washington, D.C., a few years ago, I recall having taken the initiative, in addition to meeting with the people at the State Department and Congress and what have you, with government establishment, I decided to visit galleries and to meet with the gallery directors and make friendship with them, and also visit libraries, visit the universities, Georgetown University, American University, etc. And that created for me a whole large horizon of understanding, of getting to know America better. We have a cliche image of the United States or any other country before we live in it, which can be readjusted through cultural understanding, through cultural reading. And this creates also for you, I say, a lung of oxygen. Because, as you know, the bureaucratic, diplomatic work we experience here and there, politically speaking, can become very boring. And it's very dry.
But you have never made it boring for us. We learn, that cultural diplomacy can be applied at all levels. And if you go into one of the key, profound benefits that we get from cultural diplomacy is the respect and recognition of cultural diversity and heritage.
I have come to the conclusion that without the cultural composer in any project, that project is limping, missing something, both culture and communication. If the experts in the field do not get to know the community for which they are doing this project with or for, that project will never continue to be and to exist. And this has happened. I'm sure you have experienced the same thing in Latin America. This is in the past, of course. Experts come, they spend 3 or 4 years, the project manager, and they leave, and everything stops. And millions of dollars were spent like this. The experts, they never bother to know the people they are working for or with. That is the so-called local people, the locals. I hate this word. And the locals, they were never told, they were never explained what is it all about. So when I came back home in Ávila, it's a small town of 30,000 people, I decided to, of course, I ran for elections, I became the mayor, and in my vision was how am I going to see the development of this town. We were in need of everything, to be honest with you. I mean, this was a period which was very difficult. I'm sure you have been told this. No electricity, no drinking water, the roads,
Yes.
no harbor, no fishing, etc. And I said, with other colleagues of mine, let us invest culture as a resource for development. And I began to say, we have no gold, we have no oil, we have no etc. But we have a very important resource, which is imagination, creativity, culture. And that's what we've been doing. And it, of course, it's turned into a festival and lots of people came from here and there. And I think in diplomacy, the same thing happens because a diplomat, I think this is our duty in the foreign ministers and high officials are obliged to include in the ambassador and the diplomats briefing or training before going to a place or before coming to a place, something about that place. In addition to their work as diplomat, the classical diplomatic work that gives them a chance to meet with the real people, I call them, the elite, the cultural people in the place where they were assigned.
And that was a lesson that I also took from you, because my country has a population of 6.6 million, but we have 3 million Salvadorans living outside. How did we keep and how could we keep a relationship with them? Diplomats and our consuls had to go also. They learned, following your example, that we had to create links, cultural links, with our communities of Salvadorans living outside. So I started as foreign minister sending, folkloric dancing teachers and also, performers. So they would not only perform on our Independence Day, which happens to be in the month of September, but they would remain, for example, in Milan, in Italy. They would make the presentation, the consul general will be supporting them, but then the community embraces, these people, and they would remain there for a couple of months, setting up small academies to teach the young Salvadoran Italians how to dance El Carbonero, how to do some folklore music, and they would cement their roots. So all of this practice of assisting cultural subjects, so it's disseminating the culture and cementing the cultural identity in these communities living abroad that came from my experience through you of cultural diplomacy, and that have rendered enormous fruitful success for our people.
Often I say culture is the missing link in many equations of diplomacy. Mm-hmm. Understanding better a culture, feeling and sensing your vis-a-vis helps a lot to overcome the misunderstanding and the mistrust. And in order to maintain what we hope to remain as a lasting thing in this world, that's peace and stability, in order to realize the hopes of the millions of people, we are obliged to include in every diplomatic program, in every diplomatic assignment, little leaflet, little booklet, telling one who the other is. That's very important because, as you know, some of the things we are suffering from, all of us, suffering ourselves and others are suffering from us, are the prejudices, the imagery, the image we have of the other, which is often, quite often, not the real image, is the heritage we have accumulated through others who have preceded us, knowledge which was wrong. I think culture is the way to correct that feeling, that sensing, that vision, and can create a beautiful world for our children and generations to come.
And the instrument, cultural diplomacy, is definitely no longer relegated to the periphery of international relations. It's in the midst, it is vibrant, it is innovative, it is using all of the technology through the internet to be able to successfully, go abroad and establish every single one of the principles that you just promoted. Cultural diplomacy can also be practiced by the private sector and by the NGOs and by a mayor in a small city in the coast of Morocco, in Azila, as you also did. So the basis of human understanding and the basis of reaching out through a cultural link that opens not your sense of eyesight, but also your heart to be open to ideas, open to understanding, open to respect, is definitely a lifetime learning. And I thank you for that, Mohamed.
I think we can benefit others. We can benefit others, and I'm glad that our setup that with Secretary Madeleine Albright and Aspen and other colleagues of ours, we are doing it, we are promoting it. In other words, we are different. We are coming from different cultures, from different languages, different races, and we work together. We love each other, and we understand each other. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you soon.